So today we're going to be disassembling this Shimano Citica 200D. This reel cosmetically is flawless, as well as mechanically. It's just been sitting in the box for a while and needs to be cleaned up. So we're going to go ahead and get started with that today. So before we begin, we're going to make sure that we have the right schematic for the reel. First thing we're going to do is take this nut cap off by removing the screw. There's the nut cap. Now, because I looked at the schematic, I know that there's a clicker, pin, and spring in here. So I'm going to hold the drag star down while I take this nut off to remove the handle. And then in this tiny little hole is the keeper pin and the spring. If you can see in there, there's the pin and the spring that came out of that hole. Alright, next we're going to set this aside. So next we're going to pull this spring off, and we're going to use a crescent wrench, a small crescent wrench, to get this nut started off. This is the drag nut. Right. Here is a wear washer, and then your curved drag washers. One, two. So my next step is going to be to remove the spool tension cap, which has a retainer spring in it. And you can take this out by sort of twisting it out. So next we're gonna take this side, open up the side plate, palm side plate, by using the lever. Slide the arm out of the way and pull the spool out. I'm gonna go ahead and close this back. Okay, now we're going to open up the drive side, the handle side of the plate. I like to start from the top front for the face plate and go counterclockwise in order. I'm going to take note of how long each screw is so that when I go to reassemble it, I know where it goes. So there's 4 screws here on the outside. And then there's one more screw to be able to take this plate off. See, that bottom one is the longest one. There's one more screw here at the bottom, and what it is it's a lube port, so that in between servicings you can drop some oil and lubricate this reel, but that little screw has to come out as well. Now from there you can just pull the side plate off. What I like to do here is take the spool tension bearing out. Set that aside. Then inside of here is the one-way clutch bearing. You can push that out from the back side. So once I got those out, once I have those out, push my bearings to the side. I'm going to push this plate to the side, and then I'm going to start to work on the getting all this stuff out. But first I'm going to want to be able to take this palm side plate off. But as a measure, I'm going to take the 2 springs off of the yoke post, and then there's an E-clip here. I'm going to take this E-clip off, being very careful to put my finger on it so it doesn't go flying. I'm going to tug that E-clip here so I don't mix it up with any other parts E-clip. Okay, so once you have the 2 posts off and E-clip off, you can open the palm side of the plate again from the underneath. It should slide out. Next, I'm going to take this bearing out by putting my finger over this E-clip, scooping it out. I'm going to set that aside. So I'm going to take this bearing out. I have some very tiny, smooth, needle-nose pliers with no teeth. I'm going to take this compression plate out. So I'm going to set that aside. Next, I'm going to take the drive shaft sleeve off and the drive gear off. So there's a anti-reverse dog right here. I'm going to take him off. Set him aside. Then we have the drive gear washers for the drag. So there's your top washer and your carbon washer. On the underneath is your anti-reverse gear and another washer. We're going to set all of that aside. So next we're going to take the pinion gear and the yoke out. Separate them, put that aside. We're going to remove the faceplate next by taking this screw out on the palm side. And we can pull the faceplate off. So next we're going to take the drive shaft out by removing these 2 screws. So because we're going to want to wash this bearing, we're going to have to take apart the drive shaft. You have to take the C-clip off using a small screwdriver. I'm going to have to pop that E-clip off. There's a brass washer, the bearing, the plate, plastic gear, and then the drive shaft itself. And from here, I'm going to work on taking out the cam and brake system. So the first thing I'm going to do is with my finger over it, I'm going to push this spring and lift it out of the body to release some of the tension, and then take these two screws out. I'm going to take the post plate out. Now inside of here I can see that there's a bearing. I can take that out in a minute. I'm going to take this brake off. I'm going to lift up on it with a small screwdriver. So there's the cam. This is the kick out arm and the spring for the kick out arm. Pull that bearing out. So next is going to be the worm gear. Now, in order to take the worm gear off, in order for you to take the pawl cap off, which is right here, you're going to have to go all the way through the body with a flathead screwdriver. So there's the pawl cap that came off. I'm going to try to work the pawl out. There we go. So there's the pawl. Inside of the cap is a very tiny washer that can stay in there for now. So now that the pawl is out, I can go on this side, get the grease a little wipe off, and pop the C-clip off. The worm gear falls out the bottom. There's a washer here, and then a bushing plate that the worm gear rides in. Oops. And then we pull the actual worm gear out, and it has a bushing plate on the other side. You can just push down on the gear, turn that, pull that plate out. I'm going to have to pop this C-clip off, this little bitty one. In order for this pin to come out, and then the line guide comes off. Now from here, the only thing we have left to take off is the thumb bar. So what I'm going to do in the body is I'm going to take this screw out. So the next screw is through the body in the where the actual thumb bar meets this plate, this arm. So you're going to take that screw out so that you can pull this out, rotate the thumb bar off. Now what's left is two line guide shafts. Those can come out, and now the reel is disassembled. All I got left to do is clean it and then reassemble it with fresh oil and fresh grease.